How's it going, everyone? So you might notice that there's just a big black box up there. This presentation is a little bit different, and we'll get into a reason why. But for some of you who know me, my name's Chris Marshall, and I had a company called Aerie. And so if we go to the next screen, I'll share a little bit about Aerie. So about 3-4 years ago, during COVID, I'd come up with an idea for a software company. It's a real estate investment platform. It's not important to this presentation. But this presentation today normally is about presenters presenting on a new business idea that they're starting or they want help on or something that they're excited to create. I actually, in last December, shut Aerie down and started through the process of closing Aerie. And in June-ish, I wrote a blog post, rather long blog post about a bunch of the lessons that I'd learned through the process of those last 3 years of my life. And when Daniel read the blog post, he asked that I would present. Go ahead. You can, yeah, this is the blog post that I wrote. It's titled Top Lessons I Learned from Shutting Down a Funded Tech Startup with a Growing User Base. So at the time of deciding to shut it down, we had just secured some funding from investors, and we had a user base of about 200 users, and it was growing. We had revenue from subscribers, and so many startups would say, well, why would you shut this down? And there's a lot of reasons why I chose to shut it down. They asked that I share some of those today, some of the lessons that I learned in that process. But if you want the whole thing, my website is thechrismarshall.com. It's on there. It's like a half-hour read. It's pretty lengthy. So I'm not going to bore you and read the entire thing today, but if you're interested, go ahead and learn it up. So if you go to the next screen, before I get into those lessons, a little bit about me. We lived in Missouri when I had this idea, and at that time, my wife and I, we were in our young 20s, and we got married, and we had quite a number of successful companies. We had a dog boarding facility, we had a martial arts school, we were flipping homes, we had rental properties, a general contracting company. We were doing a lot of things right, a lot of people would say. And after having this idea for the software company, I decided to sell all that stuff and move 1,000 miles away from my network, my community, everybody that knew me, to a completely new area and start a software company. And one of the lessons that I learned that I did not include in the blog post because it wasn't super relative was that if you're going to start something new, maybe keep a little bit of what was keeping you successful on the back burner just in case. Maybe also don't move 1,000 miles away from everybody that you know that can help you build something new for yourself. Besides that, I'm also a father and a husband, like I said, and we really enjoy having our kids in all of our companies and stuff like that. But go ahead and skip to the next one. So the first lesson that I think was super important in the process that I learned, and something that I did do with Aerie, and what I want to talk about in these lessons is what the lesson was, what I did wrong with Aerie, and then what I'm doing differently now. So the first one, customer discovery, as it says on the screen, the process of engaging directly with potential customers to, one, validate the problem, understand their needs, refine the solution, and then ensure product market fit. So when I went through the early days of Aerie, the software looked a little bit different. I went through this startup cohort called the Delta I Fund based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. It was a great experience. And basically the process of customer discovery is you're just trying to talk to the people you think you want to serve and figure out what their problems are that you might be able to solve with whatever your business idea is. And I did that, but what I failed to do with Aerie was I already had this idea for the software company that I wanted to build. And so I modified it a little bit, and I tried to shove it into the hole that I thought I needed to fill. And that proved ultimately wrong, the wrong way to do it. So now what I did over the last 9 months after deciding to shut down Aerie, I have no business ideas. I had no plan on what I wanted to do next. Instead, I went to the community around me, my church, you all, and I just simply listened to the problems that you kept saying over and over and over again. And I started to form ideas around that. The next lesson ties into this. So starving crowd. If you had one advantage over your competitor, what would it be? A lot of people might say pricing or location or whatever. But as you can probably tell by the slide in the lesson, the biggest advantage you could probably have in business is a starving crowd. If you are the only hot dog stand that is open on the street at 2 a.m. when a bar lets out, you're going to sell out of hot dogs. Doesn't matter how good your hot dogs are, right? So not only was I listening for what are the problems that are around me that I could solve and serve the community with, Was there a large enough need? Was there a large starving crowd that desperately wanted something? So I didn't want people to be simply aroused by my idea. I wanted them to be ravenous by my idea, right? The next one, team. This was something that I have failed many times before, and something that I knew I was going to need to solve in this next endeavor, whatever I did. I'm really good at figuring out how to do things. I'm a pretty visionary person. I can see what needs to be built and where to go. But as you can see by the quote, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I did not do that with Aerie. I had tried to build a team later on, towards when I had started raising capital, about year 3. I'd found a couple board members and ultimately ended up letting them go because I thought that was the right move, and that put a strain on a couple relationships with people that I really enjoyed being with and I really respected in the community. And yeah, it's something that I would definitely do differently, and I am doing differently on the next endeavor. Yeah, next slide. So the greater ecosystem, this ties into the next piece and sort of the lesson that I talked about in the beginning about moving 1,000 miles away. This area was not the correct area to build the company that I wanted to build in Aerie. A tech company and a real estate investment company was not something that I could build here successfully with much ease. If I had moved to Nashville or Kansas City or Houston, perhaps maybe. Houston and Kansas City have a large percentage of prop tech software companies, and maybe Aerie would have turned out differently if I'd moved there, but instead I moved here. And I don't think that this is necessarily wrong. When I was in the midst of building Aerie, I felt very shunned in Ocala. I wasn't happy with the resources that the community had to offer me. Looking back now afterwards, I could see that that's not really Ocala's problem. That's my fault for trying to build Aerie here. So as a lesson to you all, if you're going to build something, make certain that it fits with the greater ecosystem, and also make certain you have a support system. So that's the 4 lessons that I really wanted to share with you. If you go to the next slide, as a final piece of insight, well, I had a final lesson that wasn't really going to be a thing, and I can't even remember what it was now. Work on your memory. Just because you're young doesn't mean that doesn't mean that your memory won't fail you. I'm sure it was something super important and really awesome. It'll come to me later. Yeah. So this is a bit of a different one. I've been, over the last 9 months, I haven't really been building anything at all. I've been helping companies do some consulting and different things like that. If anybody has any questions about customer discovery or the proper ways to build startups, something that I was focused on in the last couple years. Yeah, this is a different presentation, but I'm thankful for Daniel for giving me the opportunity to share more of what I've learned and share some of the story. Oh, I remember what it was. Have you got a second? Talking about failures. A lot of businesses and owners fear talking about their failures and their shortcomings in their business. And I know that seems strange because of the meeting that we're in today is talking about the challenges that we are trying to face in overcoming and starting up something. In this whole thing, creating this blog post and talking about the failure of Aerie, I wrote a blog post specifically talking about how I was going to shut down this unsuccessful company. One of my competitors reached out to me after writing this blog post, and they wished to see if they could hire me. I told them, no way in hell. I was not going to work for another startup. But what I told them that they could do is they could acquire Aerie. And so through this process of writing a blog post about me shutting down an unsuccessful company, Aerie is being acquired. And I think that overcoming and talking about the real failures, a lot of people want to talk about, oh, yeah, I could get a little bit more customers. The company's great, but if I could get a little bit more customers, it would be awesome. And a lot of people talk about failures like that aren't really failures or shortcomings in their company. But being brave and trying to talk more about what is actually struggling in your company and what you're facing as a person and individual can oftentimes result in some really beautiful outcomes. So that was the final piece of advice that I forgot.
Absolutely. Great presentation.